I say to them tonight, there is not a liberal America and a conservative America. There is the United States of America. There is not a black America and a white America and Latino America and Asian America. There's the United States of America.
Barack Obama in 2004 with a vision of a united America. But now, Gallup surveys show that the two parties are more polarized than ever. And the Texas redistricting fight has escalated into a national brawl between red states and blue states.
If they show back up in the state of Texas, they will be arrested and taken to the Capitol.
We are talking about emergency measures to respond to what's happening in Texas, and we will nullify what happens in Texas.
They fled and went to leftist blue states that may be more aligned with their personal philosophy that is not welcome in the state of Texas.
We are at war, and that's why the gloves are off, and I say, bring it on.
This feud may only deepen existing divisions in this country. Right now, 40 states have governments controlled by one party or another, and the anxiety about where this all could lead was expressed in last year's thriller Civil War.
19 states have seceded.
The United States Army ramps up activity.
The White House issued warnings to the Western forces as well as the Florida Alliance.
The three-term president assures the uprising will be dealt with swiftly.
There's some kind of misunderstanding here. What? Well, you're American, okay? Okay. What kind of American are you?
Joining me now is David Daley, journalist and author who's written extensively about politics and voting rights. His latest book is Anti-Democratic: Inside the Far Right's 50-Year Plot to Control American Elections. David, thanks for joining me this evening. I'm going to start with this. I'm a political scientist by training. I teach political journalism to students, and I've always been skeptical of the idea of purely red and blue states. I think there's a lot of purple in there, but they've been gerrymandered into red and blue states. Do you think that we have actually, does the data show that we are actually more ideologically polarized today, or is it simply the leadership of our country is more ideologically polarized and it's dragging people in their directions?
I think that we have been polarized by gerrymandering. We've been polarized by redistricting. We have 25 states that voted for Donald Trump 3 times. Those 25 states all have Republican governors, Republican state legislatures, and they have 50 U.S. senators. We have, in many ways, the exact opposite of what Barack Obama hoped for in that speech. And so much of it goes back to the question of redistricting. When Obama was elected in 2008, Democrats had a supermajority in the U.S. Senate, a huge advantage in the U.S. House. Republican strategists recognized that as historic as the 2008 election was, the 2010 election would be much more consequential. It was a census year, it was a redistricting year, and that if they were able to win trifecta control in purple states, and that's what they've taken over to really have the upper hand in redistricting. North Carolina, Ohio, Indiana, Florida, Wisconsin, Michigan. That's where the Republican gains on redistricting were made. So much of this stems from that strategy.
And a lot of the data shows that it was in 2012 where I think Democrats got over 1 million more votes, but ended up, losing seats when we had sort of our midterm elections during the presidential election in 2012. How does that happen? So what is the process that Republicans have taken slowly over the last 50 years, 40 years, 15 years, 7 years to make sure that they can gerrymander out power despite, in some instances, not having the majority?
Republicans had a really sophisticated strategy heading into the 2010 midterms. And what they wanted to do, and Karl Rove outlined this in an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal that March. He said, the party that controls state legislatures can control Congress. And so Republicans had a strategy called Red Map, short for the Redistricting Majority Project. And what they set out to do was to control every seat at the table when it came to redistricting in 2011. This was focused really in purple states, in North Carolina, Ohio, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. And as a result, you're absolutely right. In 2012, not only did 1.4 million more Americans prefer Democratic candidates than Republicans for the U.S. House. Republicans held a 234-201 advantage anyway. But all of these purple states that voted to re-elect Obama in 2012, Republicans took 64 of the 94 congressional seats from those states. That is how you can control this country from the minority, through redistricting.
So, David, I'm looking down the road. We've got Abbott saying he's going to eliminate 5 Democratic seats in Texas. You've got the governor in South Carolina saying we're going to get rid of 1 district. You've got these sorts of plans happening. And then you've got Democratic governors saying, hey, we will do this in response. Play this out. Give me some back at the envelope math here. If we look at all the solidly blue states that don't have, independent electoral commissions, if all the blue states gerrymandered out Republicans and all the Republicans gerrymandered out the Democrats, who would basically end up winning? If there was an extreme gerrymander off, who ends up winning that contest in America?
Well, voters lose, first of all, but I think then Democrats lose as well. Democrats and Republicans could fight this off to a stalemate if this just stayed in Texas and California. And I think that this by no means would pass in California if it goes to the ballot, allowing the legislature to go ahead and gerrymander. But this is not going to stay in Texas. Republicans are going to move on to Ohio, where there's only a 4-year map in place, 2 Democratic districts there that they could wipe off. It's going to move to Florida, where Ron DeSantis has already said he's going to reopen these maps. 3 seats in South Florida, as well as Tampa and Orlando, that he's going to take a look at. This is going to go to Missouri, to Indiana. If Republicans really want to continue, they could go to Kentucky, to New Hampshire, to Kansas. The Supreme Court today is taking on this additional case. They're going to hear arguments October 15th on the Voting Rights Act case out of Louisiana. Majority-minority seats could allow Republicans to rip up maps next year across the South and destroy majority black seats in Alabama, South Carolina, Georgia, Louisiana. Democrats they just don't have a lot of room to go after California. New York, it's 2028 until the state constitution can be amended. Democrats have already pretty much maximized their gains in Illinois. The governor of Oregon has said that they're not going to touch this. Maryland attempted to do an 8-0 map. The state Supreme Court said no. Democrats are trying to talk tough here about bringing a gun to a gunfight. The trouble is they're out of ammo. They're out of targets. If Republicans want to push this advantage, they can do so.
They'll end up, yeah. David Daley, thank you so much for giving us raw data, even if it's sort of depressing news. Thank you for joining us this evening on The Beat.